Van Halen, 1984, 85,000 people. Van Halen is about to hit the stage, and Eddie Van Halen had something to say to the world that night. He'd already drawn every line about what a human being could do on a guitar, then erase them, then set the whole thing on fire. Hold on. Because this story isn't just about a rock band. This is about the moment genius met charisma, Holland met Pasadena, God-given talent met pure dynamite. Eddie Van Halen came from the Netherlands, barely spoke English, didn't matter. The second his hands touched a guitar, language was irrelevant. There are two eras in guitar history, before Eddie and after Eddie. Tapping technique, sense of timing, tone, all of it got rewritten by this one guy. You ever seen a genuine genius up close? That was him. David Lee Roth. There's only one. It wasn't his vocal range that made him. It was his energy. It wasn't his singing. It was his presence. Diamond Dave walked into a room and the oxygen just disappeared. He didn't perform songs, he lived them. And those flying kicks midair, that wasn't dancing, that was freedom. Alex Van Halen, Eddie's older brother. Living in Eddie's shadow, not a chance. Alex is one of the hardest hitting drummers in rock history, full stop. The conversation about drums, he closed it. There's no yeah, but with Alex. Quiet power, the backbone, Michael Anthony. Anyone who sleeps on bass guitar has never actually heard Michael Anthony. Those harmonized backup vocals, that huge grin he brought to every stage, and that locked-in bass tone that sat like a rock under every tempo shift. He was the glue, the sonic cement that held everything together. 1972, Pasadena, California. Eddie and Alex Van Halen, two kids rehearsing in a garage, fresh from the Netherlands, talented as hell, and carrying a fire inside them that not even the biggest city in America could put out. They went through a few names, started as Mammoth. Then David Lee Roth showed up, and the spark became a flame. How did Roth get in the band? He lent them his gear, rented out his PA system, handed it over, and said, "Take me with you." In any other world, nobody takes that seriously. In this world, Van Halen was born. Michael Anthony came in 1974, lineup complete. Now they just needed one thing, for somebody to actually hear them. 1976. Gene Simmons rolled through Los Angeles in the middle of a Kiss tour. Somebody took him to a Van Halen rehearsal. And Gene Simmons, a rock legend, a guy who's seen everything, heard everything, could not hold it together. He paid out of his own pocket to get them into a studio. 2 days, because the second he heard what Eddie was doing, every instinct he had said, this kid is gonna change everything. But that demo tape went nowhere. Labels passed. Why? Because people were listening to Elton John back then. Punk had exploded. Disco was everywhere. Who wanted rock and roll? Everybody, they just didn't know it yet. 1977, Warner Brothers signed them. Producer, Ted Templeman. Now listen to this. Van Halen's debut album was recorded in 3 days. 3 days. Some artists today take 3 years to put out a record, but this band had been cooking those songs on stage for years. The studio was just a recording device to them. February 1978, the debut album dropped, self-titled Van Halen, and there was Eruption. 1 minute, 42 seconds, just Eddie's guitar, nothing else. No drums, no bass, just those hands and that instrument. Rolling Stone asked, "Are those notes actually coming out of a guitar?" Yes. And after that day, everybody wanted to play guitar. The biggest turning point came in 1984. The album and the year shared the same name, like fate had signed off on it. Jump climbed the charts, hit #1. American radio stood still. But here's the wild part. Van Halen's guitar god, Eddie Van Halen, wrote their biggest hit on a keyboard. And what did the rock world say about that? Nothing. Because Jump was too damn good to argue with. Panama, Hot for Teacher, Ain't Talkin' About Love. That many hits on one album, that's not an accident. That's what happens when practice meets genius. And then, one of the greatest breakups in rock and roll history went down. 1985, David Lee Roth left the band, or the band left him, who walked out on Who Is Still Unanswered, because every single one of them tells a different story. But the outcome was clear. Van Halen was moving forward without Roth. Sammy Hagar stepped in, the Red Rocker, powerful vocals, different energy, and some fans called it a betrayal. But Why Can't This Be Love went to #1. Dreams became an anthem. Right Now wrote a whole generation's motto. Some people call the Hagar era not Van Halen, just Halen. The debate never ended, and it never will. But that era was great, different, but great. Then the 90s hit, and things started falling apart. Drinking, fights, instability on stage. Eddie Van Halen was fighting cancer, tongue cancer, and nobody really knew how long that battle had been going on. Hagar left in 2001. There was a short Roth comeback. Then Gary Cherone came in. One album, then gone. The band looked broken, exhausted, finished. But nothing ever really dies in rock and roll, it just waits. 2007, a miracle. Roth came back, Alex came back, Eddie came back, and on bass, not Michael Anthony, Eddie's son, Wolfgang Van Halen, 16 years old. He walked out on stage next to his father, and he played without a single waver, without a single shake, like he'd been there his whole life. That tour hit 93 shows, $150 million in ticket sales, the biggest rock tour of 2007. Then, Eddie's health got worse. The stage couldn't continue. 2020, October 5th, Eddie Van Halen was gone. He was 65, and the world went quiet for a day. No single word is enough to describe Van Halen, because this wasn't just a band, this was an era. Eddie Van Halen showed us what a guitar could be. David Lee Roth showed us what a stage could mean. Alex Van Halen showed us how hard a rhythm could hit. Michael Anthony showed us how warm a sound could feel. And together, they proved one thing. When four people come together at the right moment in the right place, the world is never the same again. Rock lives, it always will. If you loved this video, and I'm guessing you did because you're still here, then there's only one thing you need to do right now. Subscribe. Because this channel has got more stories just like this one. The lives of legends, the birth of bands, the history of music, all of it right here, just for you. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments, which era of Van Halen are you? Roth or Hagar? Let's argue. Van Halen forever.